Hey there, Careblazers. Welcome back to the place where we talk about everything dementia. Dr. Natali here, and in today's video, we are going to talk about dementia, family conflict, and things that you can do to hopefully bring your family closer together rather than continuing to let it pull apart. I've been getting a lot of comments and questions recently from Careblazers asking about what to do about their struggles that they're having getting the entire family on the same page and on board with the dementia care for their loved one. Does this sound familiar to you? You sacrifice so much of your time, energy, effort, money, maybe even a little bit of your sanity to make sure that your loved one with dementia gets good care. And in return, your loved one with dementia may not appreciate everything that you're doing for them, or even worse, may even resent everything you're doing for them because they think they're just fine and that they don't need all the help that you're giving them. To make matters worse, your loved one with dementia tells other family members who call or visit that you might be trying to take advantage of them, that you're taking their money, that you're treating them like a baby, and that they're just fine and don't need any of the help after all. And because your loved one with dementia has some pretty good language skills and is able to have a conversation, it starts to get your other family members wondering, what are you doing after all? And your loved one with dementia doesn't really seem to be having that much problem. After all, they're having a decent conversation. So it starts to have a lot of doubt creep in, and it starts to make your life a lot more difficult because people are questioning what you're doing and may not even believe it when you tell them that your loved one has dementia and needs more care. Sadly, Careblazers, this is an all too common occurrence when it comes to dementia care and families. There's usually one person who sacrifices the majority of their time and care to take care of their loved one with dementia, and a lot of the other family members tend to be off on the side and not really know the whole picture or what's going on. So this makes you super resentful of everybody who's questioning and judging you, but not offering you any help. And it starts to pull families apart when they need to come together. Dementia is hard enough on its own, trying to care for a family member with dementia. Even in the best and most loving of families, it's pretty much a nightmare when you have families who are pulling apart and questioning one another. Now, I admit, trying to address family conflict in dementia care is a huge topic, and that's pretty much impossible to do in a really short video. I'm going to do my best though, and that's why I'm going to focus this video on things you, the Careblazer, can realistically do in your situation to hopefully start bringing your family together. Tip number 1 is to communicate with your other family members about your loved one who has dementia. Now stick with me. This sounds fairly simple, but there's a couple of things you need to keep in mind. Communicating with your other family members to let them know what's going on with your loved one is really important. But it doesn't mean that you just let your other family members know how bad your loved one is doing and how much help they need and how much you're doing and how awful the situation is. Yes, those things do deserve some time to talk about and to share, but a basic principle in psychology is when all people do is talk negatively or complain, no matter what situation they're in, it starts to push people away and it makes them want to avoid future communication, and it makes them kind of tune out whenever you start talking. So make it a point to share the good things that your loved one with dementia is doing, or the good moments that you and your loved one with dementia are having. So whether it's a lovely meal that you two shared, or an old memory that got brought up when you two were talking, or just that your loved one smiled really big when watching an old rerun of I Love Lucy. Be sure that when you're communicating with your family, whether it's over the phone, text message, or email, that you are including little bits of good along the way. Not every communication needs to be about all of the difficult stuff. Tip number 2 is to educate. Careblazers, can you remember when you started this caregiving journey with dementia about how confusing and overwhelming and sometimes crazy things seemed? It probably took a while to realize that some of your loved one's behaviors was even dementia at all. Now, when you think about family members who may not be as actively involved in the care of dementia, which I'm guessing is the case for a lot of families who have conflict, They're even more clueless and not understanding about why your loved one with dementia is accusing you of doing things like stealing their money. So here's where you can come in, give your family members some education about dementia, but do it in the right way, and hopefully get them to start seeing things from your perspective, and you guys can start to get on the same page. I'm willing to bet that some of your family members' suspicion or doubt about your loved one's needs most likely comes from them not understanding much about the disease at all. Try to choose things to send your family to help explain some of the most difficult parts of the disease, the parts of the disease that are probably making it difficult for your family members to understand why your loved one with dementia could be accusing you of so many bad things and seem completely fine when they're talking on the phone or when they're visiting for a short period of time. So, for example, you could forward your family members an article on anosognosia or my video on anosognosia that talks about the part of dementia that prevents somebody from knowing they have the disease, and that often leads to somebody with dementia accusing caregivers of doing things that aren't needed. It often leads to the person with dementia telling anyone who will listen that they don't need any help at all and are doing just fine. And if you're somebody who doesn't understand about dementia and hasn't heard about anosognosia, then they might start to believe the person with dementia is okay and that you're providing a bunch of care they don't need. So that specific type of education may help your family understand just how difficult this disease is, and it might start making sense to them about why every time they call, their loved one is saying everything is fine and accusing you of treating them like a prisoner. Another good example of some education or information that your family members might benefit from is the fact that dementia isn't always a bad day. It's not always them showing impairment. In dementia, you could have some good days, you could have some bad days. And so this can help them understand why sometimes when they're talking to their loved one with dementia, it doesn't even seem like their loved one has dementia at all or is struggling at all. Things that make sense to you because you're in the thick of things, caring for your loved one with dementia, is a whole strange new world for people who don't know as much about dementia. Now, the caveat with this tip is that you want to be careful in the way that you educate your loved one about the disease, since some people don't take too kindly to attempts to be educated on something that they feel they know enough about. So this would be a situation where you want to take the approach of, hey, I just came across this article, it was really interesting, I had no idea about this with dementia, and then forward it to your family member. Or, wow, I found this really interesting, I'd never heard about it from this perspective before, and then forwarding them another article or a video or whatever it may be about dementia. Again, keeping in mind, you want to forward the things about dementia that will help your family members make sense of all the things that your loved one with dementia is saying to them. So definitely things like fluctuations in the course of the disease and people with dementia oftentimes not believing they have dementia. Tip number 3 is to invite family members to be included in your loved one's care. Now, oftentimes what family members might not be able to hear from another family member, sometimes they're able to hear from a third party, a neutral party, somebody like a doctor. So inviting your family member to come along on an upcoming doctor's visit, PCP, neurology, it might help them be able to understand what's going on with their loved one, and it might offer them an opportunity to have some of their questions answered by somebody who isn't you. If your family member is out of state and unable to attend doctor's appointments in person, which is often the case with family members who don't believe what's going on simply because they don't see what's going on a regular basis, consider sending your other family members a copy of the doctor's notes or telling them by email or phone just how an appointment went or an upcoming appointment that they're going to have. Again, the goal is just starting to include the other family members to be a more active participant in your loved one's care. Another idea would be to invite your family member over for dinner for an afternoon. Let them know that the person with dementia would love to spend time with them. The more involved they are in the care of your loved one with dementia and the more time they spend with that person, the faster and more likely it's going to be for them to see the impairment and struggles that are happening. Tip number 4 is acceptance and remembering the most important thing. Ultimately, the only thing we are able to change is ourselves and what we do. No matter how much education or effort we try, we have no control over how the other person's going to react. And in some cases, sadly, Careblazers, some family members just don't turn around to see the big picture or aren't willing to get a full understanding of the situation at hand. I've seen many families who, despite their best efforts, they just can't get along. They just can't come together, and in those cases, you have to accept that you cannot change others, and you have to focus on the most important thing, and that's providing great care to your loved one with dementia, regardless of what others think. Your job is not to convince others, it's to do great care for your loved one with dementia and for yourself. So take comfort and confidence in knowing that you are doing the best that you can, and your job is not to convince anybody else of what's going on, but to provide the best dementia care for your loved one. Take the high road, surround yourself with as many other Careblazers as you can who understand and know just what you're going through and who can support you, whether it's in an online support group or an in-person support group. Careblazers, I hope this video has been helpful to you. I know this family stuff is hard, and I know this video only scratches the surface at all of the family struggles that come along when it comes to caring for a loved one with dementia. Perhaps this whole family conflict support topic can have a bunch more videos in the future that I can work on. But in the meantime, I'd really encourage you all to try a couple of these tips out and just to see what starts to turn around. Careblazers, feel free to leave a comment below with any other questions or topics you'd like to see me address in a future video. I hope that this reaches all of you doing well. And until next week, bye.